Hello and welcome to the Three Well Podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan, and I'm here with my co-host, Tommy. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Danny.
Great. It's a Friday.
It is a Friday. It's becoming a pattern. We used to do these on Thursdays. Now it's Fridays.
It's fine. Hey, that's not a problem at all. Yesterday you were at the MTC, otherwise known as the Microsoft Technology Center in Alpharetta, Georgia.
Yes. Yeah, it was a good experience.
Yeah.
It's been a while and kind of excited to do it again soon.
Nice. So tell me, let's just talk about that. What was the purpose of doing this in the first place?
Well, we were working with a customer that we implemented SharePoint for them back in 2008.
Okay.
And so they're still on SharePoint 2007 today. We helped them get their site structure in place, think about what are the right kind of divisions of knowledge and who can lead that knowledge, and did some extranet work for them.
Okay.
And worked until 2009, and they hired a SharePoint engineer, and we helped that SharePoint engineer get on their feet and be successful within the organization. And just over time, there was an investment in the platform, and they've recognized that, and they're back into reinvesting in the platform. And so much has changed since the time that they got into SharePoint and started trying to grapple with the value of how that's applied to their organization. And it's been stale. So they that time frame from 2007 to what SharePoint is today in Office 365, it's changed quite a bit, and there's a lot to absorb and a lot to learn, and we thought this would be a good first step in the journey together to talk about the art of the possible and what makes sense from an adoption and roadmap strategy for them with SharePoint.
And so this is what it's called, an envisioning session, or what is it? Does it have some sort of general name to it as far as what you did yesterday?
We use their Envisioning Center as a part of this engagement, and I've heard them called architectural design sessions.
Okay.
And it's really a visit to the MTC, and this is kind of the first interaction that you can have with the folks there, and then from there you can take different paths and do things like proof of concepts using the labs there.
Nice.
And work with different people of expertise. And we had kind of the general show of what is Office 365 and productivity, and then we also at the end of the day dug deeper into Windows 10 and mobility, because this organization deploys mobile devices to some of the largest airlines and some significantly large companies in the US and over the world. So they wanted to get a sense of what is the strategy for packaging and deploying to new devices to essentially get those prepared to go to the field.
So they have a script that they sort of somewhat want to go through as far as like a high level, and then you can start to dive into some deeper details in certain areas, then it sounds like.
Yeah, the agenda for the day was introductions, who are the players that are here for the conversation, and then they gave us a kind of an overview of the platform, kind of priming us. Actually, before that, they went through, what are the challenges? Why are you here? How can we help? And we had a session before. We had a prep session before that day.
Okay.
But that was to revisit that with a larger audience, everyone that was there from Stratix, to kind of chime in of what their expectations were, what their challenges were that we could address on that day. And then after getting that baseline, we went into the Envisioning Center. And inside that Envisioning Center, we went through the experience of someone using the platform, from kind of personal use all the way through collaboration and using the different channels of communication within Office 365, like Skype and Office 365 groups and Yammer and the whole gamut.
And HoloLens.
Yeah, well, they didn't. We actually asked about that because they
Mm-hmm.
took us for a little tour
Okay.
around the center, and there was, surface hubs, and they want to have a HoloLens, and they've asked for one, so they're hoping to get one soon.
Nice. That'll be interesting to see that. Now, you were mentioning, as far as who is it from the client that like, is it a group of 5 people, 10 people, or and like how is it decided who comes from the client?
It's people that are gonna have a voice in how are they going to accomplish getting the most out of the platform.
Okay.
So it was very heavy IT centric.
Mm-hmm.
The CTO of the organization, or the CIO of the organization, was there, along with the director of IT and person in the actual lines of business within the organization that are running more technical type operations,
Mm-hmm.
and even a network administrator. So we had a variety of people really in the IT organization, but this is a very IT-centric type of service they provide.
Mm-hmm.
So they are customer-facing, people that are making sure that they're using the right technology to solve the problems they have with their customers.
Now, we were talking about, as we were preparing for this podcast, you'd mentioned what I call inbox sprawl, or having multiple inboxes or multiple ways of people contacting you. Was that, were there a lot of different ways? What was that conversation had yesterday, or what, just all of the different ways that, okay, now I've got 10 different ways of contacting a colleague, and I spend my morning trying to figure out how to, what was that addressed, or what happened?
I don't think that was addressed head on, but
Yeah.
I think the nature of this group was a little bit of reservation around all these different communication channels hitting
Mm-hmm.
them. And so they're coming from a world of really email and SharePoint that today is not used very well. So it's really just email, and then they're introducing Skype, and there was a comment in the group of someone getting spammed internally from Skype, that as soon as Skype was turned on, that became more of a distraction than a benefit for them in getting things accomplished. So that's probably one of the things that was going through their head the most.
Mm-hmm.
Is, one, how do I secure content well? And that's a typical IT type of thought process.
Yep.
Of, how far do I take it? Am I protecting against malicious
Mm-hmm.
activity or accidental activity, like sending something out in an email to a customer when you think you're sending it internally? So if you have confidential information, maybe a policy that would prompt you to say, are you sure you want to do this, because this is confidential information? Do you want to send it externally?
Mm-hmm.
But in the whole kind of absorbing everything that was there, from Yammer to Office 365 groups to Skype to OneDrive to SharePoint to Exchange, and all those and Delve.
Mm-hmm.
They even exposed Delve to them. Those were things that you just feel like, well, gosh, I'm just an email today. Do I really need to participate in these other work streams, these other channels
Mm-hmm.
of communication? And I don't think there was an answer there, but one of the things that is kind of common is that one place that you can thread it through is email.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at Yammer, when you're looking at Office 365 groups, those things, you can tune it a little bit to determine how much you want to be pulled in
Mm-hmm.
to all that activity that's happening within your organization. So, for example, Yammer, maybe you don't want to stay in touch with what's in Yammer,
Mm-hmm.
but if someone wants to pull you in, they can mention you, and you get an email. For Office 365 groups, you can be a member of that group and decide not to subscribe to the updates.
Okay.
And so, depending on how important these channels of communication are to you, you tune in appropriately. But that takes work, and there's a fine balance of how you might configure it to be out of the box for the typical user. So it defaults to something that fits the culture of the organization. And that was a theme from the CIO of, we need to look at what is our culture and how do we want the platform to support that culture.
Neat. That's good that he's thinking about it that way.
Oh yeah.
That's really great to hear. What else? Were there any other themes that sort of came up that stood out from yesterday?
What I was not surprised, but it was interesting to see the emphasis on Office 365 groups.
Oh, okay.
We're really grappling with that internally. For example, we have a sales site inside of SharePoint where it's got a document library and has that sales content. And it's that one place you can go to go get that sales content. Well, you might not want to make that public to everyone in the organization. So it gets tricky in terms of, how do I be collaborative around that content and also keep it secure? We've been kicking the tires with Office 365 groups. And with Office 365 groups, it's a more collaborative experience. You can kind of set who are the people that are part of this pursuit. And then we've talked about after that pursuit is done, then you can move that content into its record repository. So it's that one place to go. But that takes a little bit of automation, and the cobbler has no shoes. So we've decided to keep it simple and just work with the sales site. But we are continuing to find, what are those areas that groups apply? Because it seems like when you look at the roadmap, there's just a ton of updates to Office 365 groups. So you got to say, Microsoft really believes that this is going to be big for us. And I look at it as kind of an equivalency to social groups in Jive. And we've got that experience of Jive where, you had sites and you had groups, and sites had that hierarchy and groups was flat. And groups really were self-organizing, places that you could go to create and collaborate. And this world, I think Microsoft is jumping on this bandwagon of, kind of user-driven social content generation where, we don't want to have to go through IT to go set that up. And that makes IT nervous because where's the structure? But at the end of the day, this environment at this customer, they had control, and they put control over this environment, and it didn't flourish. So, how can you allow for environments to be empowered to collaborate? And I think groups is trying to strike that chord. There's a lot coming together with it. It's every part of the platforms coming together when it comes to Office 365 groups. You've got the email component with conversations. You've got a calendar that's tied to that group. You have a OneNote that's tied to that group. You have really a SharePoint site that is exposed as almost like a OneDrive repository for files. You've got Planner, and Yammer is coming soon. That should be, anytime we should start seeing Yammer.
So there's Yammer integration with groups as well.
Right, okay. Right. So you almost see every facet of Office 365 comes together with a group. And so what I see it as is a way to take a group of people and provisioning everything that has to do with the platform, concentrated around this community. And then so if you need to do something with notes, it's exposed to you in a simplistic way. If you need to store some files, it's exposed to you, not as a full-blown SharePoint site, but it looks like just like a OneDrive site.
It's almost like it reminds me of it's a security context.
It is a security context. It's a working in security context. So, kind of the other side of that spectrum of, that there's a lot of great things with that. Now it becomes a lot of extra containers that are flat and have no structure to them. They're flat. So how do I go back and look at sales content for a particular customer? I would like to go to the sales library, go down into the customer, and then go into the project, and then find that content. Now I'd have to go look for it in a flat list of groups. So it's with anything, there's pros and cons, and you have to see how does that play into your organization, the culture of your organization, and how you get work done, and how you can discover content over time? Is it more important to have it highly collaborative? Is it more important to have it highly structured? And sometimes those things conflict with each other.
Awesome. Well, this is something it sounds like we do with some of our existing clients, and just something that if they need to take a look at what's out there, you set this up, and it's a day long, or how?
It was a day long exercise. We work with the Microsoft account manager.
And is their account manager there with you during the day?
Ideally, they're there with you, but the size of this account, they have the group of partner account managers that are in, I think, North Dakota or somewhere out there in the Midwest. That they had to participate over the phone. But they want the partner there, they want the account manager there, and then the customer.
Awesome. So if folks are looking for this is something, it sounds like it's a good experience for them if they want to reach out to us to have us participate in it. I imagine we're just sort of sharing some of the things that we're seeing in general with our clients, and just adding in, probably chiming in every once in a while.
Yeah, we do that. And I looked at this as a way to say, this is a great service for customers of Microsoft. Let's go in and get immersed in that. And then it plants a lot of seeds. And then let's step back and say, okay, what do we want to take forward from that? What's resonating, and what do we think is the most important things to do in this next year?
Well, we were talking before about creating roadmaps. This sounds like something that's probably not a bad thing to do.
It's feeding into the roadmap. It's definitely, we talked about roadmap, and we said before we get into the nitty gritty of that, let's hear the story from Microsoft.
Good. Well, I want to start promoting our Twitter handles. So your Twitter handle is Tommy Ryan?
Tommy Ryan, yes.
See, you got it early on. I'm Danny F. Ryan, so the F for Francis.
That's right.
So if folks are interested in things that Tommy is up to, please follow him on Twitter at Tommy Ryan.
That's right. It's all together, no hyphen, no dash, no period, Tommy Ryan.
Excellent. And you're tweeting every once in a while, right? Or you're retweeting my stuff every once in a while, right?
Yes. I go in the cycles, but I would say within a month I'll be tweeting a couple times, and sometimes within a week I'll be tweeting 10 or 15 times.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you for taking the time to share what happened yesterday, and appreciate you spending this extra time with the clients. Nice.
Sure.
Very good. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to listen. And please drop by 3will.com if you're interested in doing one of these envisioning sessions at your local, at your Alpharetta MTC. I don't know if we're going to be going to any other cities to do this, but if you're in the Atlanta or Alpharetta area and interested in doing this, just drop by our site and hit us on the Contact Us page, and we'd love to talk about heading out there with you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Thanks again, Tommy.
You're welcome, Danny.
Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.